Sal Hespler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to begin my speech by thanking Open Media, the Canadian Constitution Foundation, and privacy lawyer David Fraser for their excellent work on Bill C-22. The analysis I'm about to offer closely mirrors their own, and if the Liberal government would simply listen seriously to these civil liberties groups, they wouldn't have to hear from me on this bill, but they haven't, so here we are. Speaker, at around age 13, I was horrified to read the following excerpt from Chapter 1 of George Orwell's 1984. The telescreen received and transmitted simultaneously. Any sound that Winston made would be picked up by it. Moreover, so long as he remained within the field of vision, he could be seen as well as heard. There was, of course, no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment. How often or on what system the thought police plugged in was guesswork. 27 years ago, that gave me a chill down the spine. Could people really live with the government listening to their every utterance, watching their every move? How could the human spirit ever flourish in the utter absence of basic privacy? Even at a much younger age, I knew that it was basically wrong for my sister to go through the things in my room, or for me to read her diary. Not because any authority figure ever told me it was wrong. I knew it in my soul. One can't develop one's thoughts, one's feelings, one's self under prying eyes.
So true. Some people just like to vent, you know? They want to express their concerns about something that's going on in the privacy of their own home, and that's going to be used to justify throwing people in jail. You know, they're slowly implementing different pieces of legislation so that it's not all in one piece to take away more and more of your freedoms. Meanwhile, with our existing laws, they're not prosecuting people correctly. How many fucking times have we let out people that have committed crime only to commit crime again, both in Canada and in the United States? It's fucking ridiculous. People should use the existing laws and prosecute people correctly now. That's all conservatives want, is justice to be served properly so that you don't have people like that person in British Columbia that's living out of their van that stabbed this little girl in the neck after having priors of, I don't know if it was violent behavior or assault or whatever, but this person themselves has said that they're not mentally well, and we let them out on the street, catch and release. Like, what the fuck are we doing as a country? And now we want to implement further restrictions to just justify throwing people in prison that oppose your worldview, because that's what this is going to be used for. Everyone does this, where they say something in private that can be construed as justification for this hate speech act, which is a separate act from this one. This is just for them to survey, to monitor you, and they're going to use the hate speech act to arrest you. Even if you're not posting it, if you're just saying it in the privacy of your own home, they're going to do that. There's the freedom of religion that they're trying to slowly pry away at as well, where now they're not allowed to interpret the Bible. You can just read scripture from it, but if you start interpreting it in a certain way that could be deemed as hateful, that's not allowed either, you know? They also want to pass legislation where the opposition can't request for investigations to be done when there's signs of corruption or signs of fraud being committed. The opposition party is not allowed to request research being done into that. So they want to increase surveillance and reduce accountability and remove oversight that other people have on them, but they want to increase oversight on you. Absolutely not. This is disgusting.
And that was just respect to my friends and family. What if a power as great as the government or the police violated your privacy? I knew that my mother and her family had escaped a communist regime in the 1960s, but back then telescreens were science fiction. Could my family have managed to plan their escape if a telescreen was in their home? I knew vaguely that there had been revolutions in East Germany and throughout the USSR, but even in 1989, when those revolutions started, the telescreen idea remained in the realm of science fiction. Fast forward to today. I am more horrified today. We now have the technological capability to make telescreens. I have a phone in my pocket and an Apple Watch on my wrist. I am most horrified because with the legislation before us, the Liberal government is attempting to make possible the 1984 telescreen out of every cell phone, AirPod, Apple Watch, smart TV, and automobile, anything that is connected to the internet. To quote the excerpt from 1984 again, there was of course no way of knowing whether you were being watched at any given moment. I know that the members opposite will consider my views outlandish, but they are not. Let me please take them through their own law to show them how they are doing the exact thing they swear they would never do. Section 52A. The Governor and Council, that means the government, may make regulations respecting the obligations of core providers, including the development, implementation, assessment, testing, and maintenance of operational and technical capabilities, including capabilities related to extracting and organizing information that is authorized to be accessed. In plain English, this means a backdoor. So right now, it is my understanding that my watch listens to everything I say. If I say, "Hey Siri," it sends whatever speech follows to the cloud for processing. If I don't say, "Hey Siri," nothing goes to the cloud.
So I'm just going to interject here because this isn't 100% accurate. As recently as a couple of months ago, I was showing a friend that even with your phone off, if you start talking about something like, let's say, diapers or dog chew toys, even if you don't have kids or pets, you'll start seeing ads for those things that you were talking about. So your phone is constantly listening. Now, is that legal? No, I don't think it should be legal, but it's not illegal. It's a gray zone. They, instead of making it less pervasive and force companies to actually turn the microphone off when the phone is off or when you're not saying, "Hey Siri" or whatever, which, by the way, I don't use Siri. I don't use the Amazon one, Alexa. I don't use whatever the fuck Android has. I don't use any of that shit. I'm still getting ads served to me based on the conversations that I'm having. So that is not correct. Your phone is always listening, regardless of whether you're telling it, "Hey Siri" or not.
Section 52A allows the minister to require that Apple build in the ability for authorities to listen to my Apple Watch, whether I say, "Hey Siri" or not. The same would go for my phone and my AirPods. Yes, they would need a warrant to actually listen in, but this bill takes the huge first step of building the surveillance architecture in the first place. Once it is built, it will be ripe for abuse either by the government or by hackers. Once it is built, it will not be unbuilt. We are at the stage where the government builds all the telescreens and puts them in your home, but promises to only use them if you've been bad. What is worse, Mr. Speaker, this bill, as pertains to electronic service providers under Section 7, such as Apple, Signal, Telegram, or Tinder, may be forced to keep that backdoor secret. Section 15, an electronic service provider and any person acting on its behalf must not disclose any of the following information. C, the fact that the electronic service provider is subject to the order. In plain English, this section sets out that the government the fact that the government has ordered construction of a backdoor to be kept secret.
To quote Robin Williams from Man of the Year, politicians and diapers have a lot in common. They both need to be changed frequently and for the same reasons. The liberals need out. They're a full diaper at this point. They need out. We've had 10 years of this stinky diaper. It's time for them to go. Our country can't take much more abuse on this front when it comes to surveillance, how much they're overspending. We're going in the wrong direction in every foreseeable facet of our lives. Gas prices are up, food costs are up. They're saying inflation's only 2%. Wages are stagnant. We're losing jobs. Like, the list goes on, and this legislation that they keep trying to pass is just making things more and more restrictive on the civilians. It has nothing to do with oversight over the government. They're actually trying to remove oversight of the government, as I said earlier.
So once this bill passes, your cell phone manufacturer, your messaging service, your dating app may receive a secret order to build a backdoor into the surface for the government to check in on you, and you might never be alerted. As in our excerpt from 1984, how often or on what system the thought police plugged in on was guesswork. Why? Why, if everything here was above board, why would the bill include the ability for the public safety minister to build secret backdoors? Some Canadians, I don't happen to be one of them, but some Canadians might say, "Okay, read my Tinder messages, I don't care, but at least tell me if you're going to do that." This bill specifically allows a minister to do it secretly. Why? Speaker, just on these points alone, the construction of a backdoor surveillance architecture and that they intend to keep some parts of this architecture secret, just on these points alone, the Liberals should hang their head in shame. Liberals are supposed to fight against this sort of government excessive reach. They are not supposed to be its source. But it only gets worse. As set forth in Section 5.2d, in addition to demanding that secret backdoors be constructed, that government ministers can order all electronic service providers to collect and store all of your metadata for a year. Metadata means many things, but the most important thing, to me, is your location. This bill goes even further than the telescreens in 1984. It turns every internet-connected device into not just a listening device, but a tracking device as well. And it causes that data, that location data, to be admissible in a court of law. Let me just give a couple examples for why I find this concerning. We just had a pandemic in which some governments went way too far restricting human rights in unscientific ways. Do you remember the red zones and the green zones or the 6-person bubbles? It may surprise the House to learn, Mr. Speaker, I never broke one single COVID rule, even though I was a strong critic of their unscientific basis. But I know that a lot of people did. I know that some people sitting on the government side of the House did. It is a matter of public record that Justin Trudeau broke COVID rules, broke the Reopening Ontario Act by attending a Black Lives Matter protest here in Ottawa. If Bill C-22 passes, when there's another pandemic with some silly rules, any police officer could say, I suspect that the member from Winnipeg North broke pandemic rules, get a warrant and see his location for every moment of the last 365 days.
The Conservatives are too nice. You and I and everyone else knows that that's not how it's going to be used. It's not going to be used for the government. If rules applied to government officials, Trudeau would have been thrown in prison after the judge ruled that what he did during the trucker convoy by banning the convoy was not allowed. Yet they've appealed it 2 times. Carney is looking to appeal it a 3rd time. He's out partying. In South Korea, they threw their prime minister in prison. We know the rules do not apply the same. We also know that if they actually cared and applied rules the same way, Carney would not be traveling so much because, we care about the carbon footprint. We care about oil prices being, we're increasing oil prices so that you reduce your travel. A lot of these meetings Carney has been having could have been a phone call. He's traveling instead. Why is that? Nothing has been accomplished. If his travels actually bared any fruit, then I would be fine with it. But he's not signing papers when he's making these trips. So just make a fucking phone call, send an email, send a fucking carrier pigeon, whatever. The rules never apply equally. So we know this is bullshit.
And if he ever stepped into a red zone or ever broke quarantine, it would be game over. This capability would not be merely for COVID laws. It would be for every law. Chrystia Freeland was once found guilty of going 30 over on the highway to see her dad. Once she was convicted of that, a police officer could check to see her speed for every moment of the 365 days preceding. So do not ask for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. As the head of Joseph Stalin's Secret Service said, show me the man, I'll show you the crime. If everyone here is surveyed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, every one of us will be liable to be found guilty for something. If the government of the day passes this bill in its present form, I fear that they may live to see the day that its provisions are used against them. I swear it won't be me doing it, but who knows who will be Prime Minister in 2056. I fear her last name may be Trudeau-Perry. They will rue the day they torched all our collective privacy rights. I urge them to correct course. We can catch bad guys without violating the privacy rights of every single Canadian. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to end the video here because the rest of the video, I saw it earlier, and it's just a minute of that gaseous windbag from earlier talking and not saying anything. So I'm going to save you guys the trouble and the time. We're not going to play that clip, just what Matt was saying. I agree, this is very scary stuff. They're gonna, even if this doesn't pass, I feel like they're gonna try to pass this again in the future. We need to stay strong with this, but we don't even have a majority. They have a full majority now, so I don't even know what they can do. Like, they can probably just get this passed without anyone of the opposition agreeing to it. So I don't know what our options are, but anyway, that's it for today's video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to stay up to date with the stuff that I'm doing. I try to post at least once a week, so I'm gonna keep to that schedule, and I post more when I can. But I do have an actual day job as well, so we'll try to ramp up the uploads when I can. Thanks for watching. Peace.